Permit me, if you will, a moment's indulgence to draw your attention to a figure you may not have heard of, though by all sensible measures you should have. The man in question is none other than David Amon Semanda Sematimba, celebrated by one and all in his native Uganda as Maddox. If this name means precious little to you now, I suspect it will grow in stature soon enough, provided the stewards of good taste in the Anglophone world finally stop ignoring masterpieces from beyond our usual cultural coordinates. Why, you might ask, should we concern ourselves with a musician from East Africa, a place so often left at the edges of our quotidian mental maps? Because, my dear reader, Maddox is living proof that the good life, so often bandied about in pious editorials and the aspirational sludge of well-intentioned think tanks, is not exclusively the birthright of the pampered West. He hails from the capital of Uganda, Kampala, straddling that uniquely African vantage of daily hustle, communal closeness, and, yes, an uncanny capacity for producing a form of music that is part revelation, part intoxication, and wholly uplifting. What is so manifestly remarkable about Maddox is that he's a reggae musician, but he is no mere Bob Marley tribute act or a parochial imitator of Jamaica's greatest, far from it. He injects Uganda's linguistic and cultural heart, Luganda for starters, into this Jamaican-born genre. By doing so, he confounds the dull old trope that Africa is purely a place of imitation, always catching up to external influences. Instead, from the first bar of any track on his discography, go on, listen to Namajembe or Munakyalo if you require an initiation, you'll find an artist who reverently embraces the simplicity of back-to-the-roots living, while simultaneously reminding us that modernity does not necessarily mean the jettisoning of tradition. Indeed, Munakyalo, which translates loosely to the one from the village, resounds as a paean to the sturdy virtues of rural life, those that we, in our so-called developed countries too, hastily dismiss as quaint or anachronistic. But in Maddox's hands that tradition is draped in a persuasive sheen of universal humanity. He lauds the pragmatic, slow-burning rhythms of village culture, the calm demeanours, the robust sense of shared responsibility, the unadulterated clarity of a life not yet corroded by superficialities. And he enjoins all of us, be we in Boston, London, Kampala or beyond, to recognize that such virtues are the unspoken bedrock of genuine contentment. Now, one might say, Hitchens, aren't you usually suspicious of anything bearing even a whiff of the spiritual? You find more than enough to critique in the world's established theologies. Indeed, I remain allergic to the dogmas that have led so many of our fellow humans astray, yet I find in Maddox's invocation of the Creator, or Omutonzi, not a sanctimonious dogma, but rather a poetic flourish, an articulation of moral seriousness that underscores the anchored life. There's a moral decency in it, a recognition of human limitation and aspiration. It lacks the oppressive mania that's come to characterize the more odious brands of organized faith. Instead, it's a gentle nod to the ineffable, a more lyrical way of capturing wonder and accountability in the presence of the unknown. Let no one accuse this man's music of being a mere exercise in heartstring tugging. His lyrics, once translated, reveal a robust ethic of honesty. In Munakyalo, the protagonist quite candidly ends a faltering relationship to pursue love with a rural partner, an act of no small social risk, I might add, in a world so often governed by face-saving illusions. In so doing, he spares us the paralyzing hypocrisy that too often attends heartbreak. The pieties and half-truths about trying to make it work, when the heart, as the lyric says, is hurting beyond remedy. There is a cleansed sincerity in it all, a moral clarity reminiscent of the best of literature, if you don't mind my referencing the oracles of old. It's something that can awaken our jaded Western ears to the possibility that not all heartbreak must be a soppy, humiliating mess. Sometimes it can be the forging of a more sincere path, and here is precisely why we might hail Maddox as a disciple of the good life. He champions a worldview that prizes familial ties, communal well-being, respect for tradition, and a certain notion that one's happiness ought not to be sacrificed to the petty expectations of appearances. This, of course, is the same impetus that animated ancient Greek thinkers and Enlightenment philosophers alike. An unwavering quest for eudaimonia, as Aristotle might call it, albeit expressed through syncopated bass lines, bright guitars, and an irrepressible African sunshine in the instrumentation. We dwell, dear friends, in a digital epoch that has seen no shortage of cultural flattening, our playlists curated by sinister algorithms whose only goal is to keep us clicking. It is precisely in such an age that the voice of a singer-songwriter like Maddox, weaving together reggae's rebellious spirit with the old wisdoms of rural Uganda, emerges as a clarion call to the Anglophone ear. There is life beyond the echo chamber of our streaming services. There is hope in an artist whose songs speak of working with one's hands, cooking over a charcoal stove, and truly cherishing that which is simple. Yes, it might be an idealization, but even illusions, if well chosen, can guide us more rightly than the naked cynicism of our modern consumer culture. So pay heed, I entreat you. Let us not permit our cultural myopia to blind us to an artist who reminds us, through a wholly different lens, what we might have lost in our frenetic race toward convenience. When you listen to Maddox, you can expect those gentle, confident waves of a reggae bass line carrying messages about love, place, and identity to your rather complacent ears. And if you're astute enough, you might just glean that the good life is not some stoic code scribbled in the margins of a self-help manual, nor is it locked up in the saccharine pages of the latest pop psychology bestseller. It might in fact be found in the subtle, restorative strains of a Luganda verse sung by a man who decided to blend the best of African tradition with the universal charm of reggae, and in so doing discovered a universal language of empathy and liberation. Take a seat. Pour yourself a decent drink. Dismiss your usual reflex to rehash the same old Top 40s playlist. Instead, tune your ear to Maddox. You may come away with the renewed realization that the good life, as ephemeral or improbable as it may sometimes seem, is alive in Africa's grassroots, humming and drumming through a music that refuses to yield to despair. And in that spirit we might do well to remember that authenticity, that intangible alignment of heart and mind, is still out there, a living rumour, encouraging us to live more thoughtfully and love more courageously. And for that, if for nothing else, Maddox deserves a place in our cultural dialogues, as an emissary of hope from the heart of Africa to the rest of our weary old world.